No portal opened, no warning rippled through the fabric of space. Yet someone, fell through dimensions, carrying weapons and armor that defied everything this galaxy understood about war. The twin suns of Tatooine hung low over the Jundland wastes, painting the canyon walls in shades of rust and gold. Sand drifted in slow spirals across dunes that had remained unchanged for 10,000 years. Then the sky tore open. A seam of blue-white light split the heavens, crackling with energy that had no business existing in this galaxy. Forerunner, slipspace energy, a signature so alien that even the ancient stones of the canyon seemed to hum in protest. Through that tier plummeted a battered Unspelican dropship, its hull scorched and venting atmosphere, trailing smoke as it spiraled downward. It struck the desert floor in an explosion of sand and twisted metal, carving a furrow 300 meters long before grinding to a halt against a rocky outcrop. For a long moment, nothing moved. The suns beat down. The wind erased the edges of the crash site, indifferent. Then the rear hatch of the Pelican groaned, hydraulics hissing, and a figure in green armor stepped out into the light of two suns. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 surveyed his surroundings with the calm, methodical precision of a man who had survived 1,000 impossible situations. His Mjolnir marked the 6th armor, scarred from 100 battles against the Covenant and the Flood, bore fresh damage from the dimensional transition. A spiderweb of cracks ran across his shield emitter housing, and the familiar hum of his energy shields was conspicuously absent. "Cortana," he said, voice flat and even through the helmet's external speakers. "Status report." Silence answered him. Not the silence of a destroyed AI chip, but something stranger. A complete absence, as if the very concept of Cortana's presence had been scrubbed from the local fabric of reality. The chip in his neural interface registered as empty, inert. Chief's HUD flickered, recalibrating. Motion trackers, normally a comforting pulse of green dots, returned nothing but static. Atmospheric readings. Breathable, but with trace gas compositions his suit's database had no record of. GPS, no satellite uplink, no UNSC frequencies, no Covenant signatures, no Forerunner architecture on the horizon, just sand. Endless golden sand stretching to twin suns that no human astronomer had ever charted. He moved with the unhurried efficiency of 7 feet of augmented muscle and ceramic titanium plating. Circling the wreck of the Pelican, the dropship was beyond repair. Its drive core ruptured, slipspace conduits fused into useless slag. Whatever had pulled him here had done so violently, and there would be no simple way back. A diagnostic chime sounded in his helmet. His shield generator was operating at 60% efficiency, functional, but the recharge rate had been cut nearly in half. The energy signature reaching his armor's sensors was wrong. Somehow, a frequency his shields weren't tuned to absorb properly. It was as if the very laws governing energy in this place spoke a different dialect than the one his equipment had been built to understand. Chief filed the anomaly away, adapt and overcome. It was a lesson Spartans learned before they could walk. He retrieved his MA-40 assault rifle from the wreckage, checked the magazine. 42 rounds remaining, no resupply available, and slung it across his back. Then he began walking, following a ridge line toward what his suit's passive scanners identified as a structure roughly 2 kilometers distant. Could be shelter, could be hostiles. Either way, it was information, and information was the first weapon any soldier needed. The desert was not empty, he soon discovered. Twice he spotted shapes moving through heat shimmer, creatures unlike anything in the UNSC's xenobiology database, long-limbed and insectile, watching him with too many eyes before retreating into burrows. Once, in the far distance, he heard something that might have been an engine, a low, whining drone unlike any Pelican, Warthog, or Covenant craft he'd ever encountered. As he crested the ridge, Chief paused. Below, nestled in a rocky depression, sat a settlement, domed structures of sand-colored stone, vaporators spinning lazily in the heat, and parked beside one of the domes a vehicle that defied categorization. It hovered. No wheels, no treads, simply floating a meter above the ground on some kind of repulsor field, its design utterly foreign, blending function with an aesthetic sensibility he couldn't place. Then he saw the figures patrolling near it. White armor, featureless black-visored helmets. Rifles held with the casual confidence of soldiers who expected no resistance. Chief's threat assessment protocols ran automatically, comparing the armored figures against every database in his memory. UNS, Covenant, Insurrectionist, Forerunner constructs. No match, nothing matched. Whoever, whatever, these soldiers were, they belonged to a power structure Chief had never encountered, in a galaxy his charts had no record of, and they were heading toward the crash site he'd just left. Chief crouched low against the ridge, dropping into cover with the practiced silence of a Spartan. His shields were compromised, his AI was gone, and he was alone in a galaxy that didn't exist on any map he'd ever seen. But he was alive, he was armed, and whatever this place was, whatever rules governed it, he would learn them, the same way he'd learned every battlefield before, through observation, through adaptation, through survival. If you want to see more crossover battles and unexpected universe collisions, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and universe you'd want to see in the comments below. Let's explore the infinite together. Below, the white-armored soldiers reached the smoking wreckage of the Pelican and began to fan out, weapons raised, voices crackling over comm units in a language Chief's translator software couldn't parse. The first contact was about to begin. The scout troopers moved with mechanical efficiency, fanning out around the wreckage in a standard perimeter formation. Master Chief watched from the ridge, cataloging their movements with the dispassionate eye of a man who had analyzed thousands of enemy patrol patterns. 4 troopers, standard-issue rifles, blaster technology, he noted, based on the visible power cells and the way the weapons were holstered without any visible ammunition belts. Their armor was rigid, white, segmented in a way that prioritized mobility over heavy protection. Stormtroopers, though Chief had no name for them yet. One trooper crouched beside the Pelican's ruined hull, running a handheld scanner across the scorched metal. The device emitted a series of beeping tones, and the trooper's posture shifted. Surprise, maybe confusion. He gestured to another trooper, who approached and examined the wreckage himself. "This material composition doesn't match anything in the registry," the second trooper said, his voice tinny through his helmet's vocoder. "Titanium a battle armor plating? That's not a designation we have on file. Could be some kind of black market tech," the first replied. "Command's gonna want to see this." Chief's translator software, working in the background of his suit's systems, had begun parsing fragments of their language. Not through any database match, but through pattern recognition, cross-referencing syntax and inflection against the broader spectrum of human languages his suit had encountered across UNS colonies. Within minutes, he had rough translation capability. Imperfect but functional, these were soldiers. Organized, disciplined, but speaking with the casual cadence of men doing a routine patrol job rather than hunting an active threat. They didn't know what they'd found yet. Chief weighed his options. He could retreat, observe from a distance, gather more intelligence before making contact, or he could approach directly, a calculated risk, but one that might yield faster results. Diplomacy wasn't his specialty, but neither was hiding indefinitely in a desert with dwindling resources and a damaged shield generator. He chose a third option: wait, and let them come to him on his terms. Chief shifted position, moving along the ridge with the silent precision that had made Spartans legendary among both UNSC forces and Covenant. He found a vantage point overlooking the settlement itself. The domed structures he'd spotted earlier, now visible as a small moisture farm, the kind of agricultural outpost that seemed to dot this barren world. Through his suit's optics, he observed civilians. Humans, mostly, in felt desert garb, moving between the domes with the wary efficiency of people accustomed to Imperial patrols. One of the Stormtroopers' hover vehicles, a speeder bike, Chief's mind supplied, based on its single-rider configuration, and the way it hummed with restrained power, peeled away from the crash site and began moving toward the settlement, presumably to question the locals. Chief made his decision. He would intercept. Moving with deliberate speed, he descended the ridge on a parallel vector, using the terrain's natural cover, rock formations, dried-out riverbeds, the long shadows cast by the binary suns, to close the distance. His shields, though weakened, still provided some protection, and his armor's natural camouflage properties, combined with his stealth training, made him difficult to spot even in open terrain. The speeder bike's pilot never saw him coming. Chief intercepted the vehicle at a narrow pass between two rock formations, stepping into its path at the last possible moment. The pilot, a single stormtrooper, had no time to react. Chief's hand closed around the speeder's control yoke, and with a burst of augmented strength, he wrenched the vehicle to a halt, nearly unseating the rider. "What the?" The trooper began reaching for his blaster. Chief moved faster. One hand seized the trooper's wrist, immobilizing the weapon. The other gripped the front of his armor and hauled him bodily off the speeder, slamming him to the ground with enough controlled force to stun without killing. The trooper's blaster clattered away, and Chief planted a boot on his chest, pinning him. "Who do you serve?" Chief asked, his voice modulated through the helmet speakers, flat and commanding. The trooper, dazed, stared up at the towering figure in green armor, 7 feet of plated muscle, faceless behind a golden visor, utterly unlike anything in his training. The Empire," he stammered. "Imperial Stormtrooper Corps, designation TK-4187. Who? What are you? Where am I?" Chief pressed, ignoring the question. "Tatooine," the trooper said, "Outer Rim. Look, if this is some kind of rebel trick." Chief processed the information. Tatooine, Outer Rim. The Empire. None of it meant anything to his databases, but the structure was familiar. A galactic power, military hierarchy, territorial control. The kind of conflict he understood, even if the players were unknown. "This empire," Chief said, "what's its relationship to the local population?" The trooper hesitated, and Chief's grip on his wrist tightened fractionally. We maintain order. Keep the rebels from gaining footholds out here. That's all. Order through force, then." Chief had encountered that paradigm before. The Unsk itself wasn't above using overwhelming force to maintain control, though usually against the Covenant or violent insurrectionists, not civilian populations. The distinction mattered. A crackle of static erupted from the trooper's helmet comm. The other scout troopers calling in. "TK-4187, report your position. We're picking up movement near your last coordinates." Chief made a decision. He could kill this man. Efficient, but it would escalate things immediately and irrevocably, branding him as an enemy of this empire before he understood the full picture. Or he could disable him without lethal force, buying time. He chose the latter. A precise strike to the trooper's helmet, calibrated to stun through the armor's weak points, rendered the man unconscious. Chief retrieved the fallen blaster, examining it briefly. Energy weapon, similar principle to Unsk's plasma technology, but with a different power source. Some kind of compressed gas or energy cell, based on the weight and the faint hum of stored charge. He pocketed the weapon and the trooper's comm device, then dragged the unconscious man into the shadow of a rock formation, out of immediate sight. The other troopers would find their missing comrade's speeder soon, abandoned, its pilot gone. They would know something was out here, something that had taken down a trained soldier without firing a shot. Chief moved away from the scene, heading toward higher ground where he could observe both the crash site and the settlement. He needed more information about this empire, about the conflict it represented, about the technology and capabilities of the forces in this galaxy. His shields were still compromised, his ammunition finite, and he was alone. But for the first time since his arrival, he had a foothold, a name for this place, a faction to study, and the unmistakable sense that his presence here had already begun to ripple outward, drawing attention from forces that didn't yet understand what had landed in their desert. Far above, in the cold vacuum of space, a Star Destroyer's sensor arrays picked up an anomalous energy signature, the lingering radiation signature of the Pelican's ruptured slipspace drive, still bleeding exotic particles into the system. Aboard that ship, in a meditation chamber lit only by the dim glow of life support systems, Darth Vader's eyes opened behind his mask. He had felt something. A disturbance, not in the Force exactly, but an absence of it. A void moving through the desert below, like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through the currents he had spent decades learning to read. Something had arrived on Tatooine, something the Force could not see. Vader rose from his meditation pod, his breathing apparatus hissing rhythmically in the silence. He moved to the viewport, gazing down at the swirling sands of the planet below. "Captain," he said, his voice resonating through the bridge's comm system, "set a course for Tatooine. I want a full sensor sweep of the Jundland wastes. Now." The encrypted transmission arrived at 0347 hours station time, buried within a stream of routine Imperial shipping. Manifest that the rebel listening post on Tatooine had been monitoring for weeks. To anyone else, it would have been noise. But Lieutenant Sarah Voss, stationed at a hidden rebel cell, operating out of a converted sandcrawler 20 kilometers from Anchorhead, had a gift for finding patterns in chaos. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, running the decoded fragment through her datapad again. The message was an internal Imperial security bulletin. Garbled, partially corrupted, but the gist was clear enough. An unidentified individual, armed and armored with technology of unknown origin, had incapacitated a stormtrooper in the Jundland wastes without leaving a trace beyond the unconscious man himself. "Could be a rebel operative," said Major Theron Dask, the cell's grizzled commander, peering over her shoulder. He'd lost his left arm at the Battle of Yavin and wore the prosthetic with the resentful pride of a man who'd paid dearly for victory. "We don't have anyone out there, though. Not from our cell." "It's not us," Sarah confirmed. "And whoever it is, the Empire's spooked. Look at this." She highlighted a section of the transmission. "They're diverting a Star Destroyer, the Vengeance. That's Vader's ship." The room went quiet. Dask's jaw tightened. Vader's involvement meant one of two things. Either the Empire had stumbled onto something genuinely significant, or someone had drawn enough attention to warrant the direct intervention of the Emperor's enforcer. Either way, it was bad news for the fragile rebel network operating in this sector. "We need eyes on this," Dask said finally. "If the Empire's about to flood Tatooine with troops looking for some unknown player, we need to know who they are before Vader does. Could be an asset. Could be a threat to our operations here. Could be both," Sarah added grimly. Dask nodded towards the cell's small contingent, 4 operatives, including a Twi'lek scout named Mira Thess, who'd grown up in the Tatooine wastes, knew the terrain better than any Imperial sensor sweep ever could. "Mira, take Core and head out toward the Jundland wastes. Stay low, stay quiet. I want to know what landed out there before Vader's people find it first." Mira Thess, Leku twitching with the particular alertness of someone who'd survived a decade of Imperial occupation through caution and cunning, nodded and gathered her gear. A worn but reliable blaster rifle, a set of macro binoculars, and a survival pack that had seen better days beside her. Kor Dengal, a stocky human ex-Imperial deserter with a chip on his shoulder the size of the Death Star, checked the charge on his own weapon. "If it's some kind of new Imperial superweapon," Kor said as they prepared their speeder, "we should just blow it up before they figure out how to use it." "And if it's not Imperial?" Mira countered, swinging onto the speeder. "If it's something else entirely, something that could help us." Kor grunted, non-committal, and gunned the engine. 2 hours later, they found the crash site. The wreckage of the Pelican sat in the desert like a wounded beast, its hull scorched black, surrounded by a cordon of stormtroopers who had clearly been waiting for reinforcements before approaching too closely. Mira and Kor observed from a ridge half a kilometer away. macro binoculars trained on the scene. "That's not Imperial tech," Mira said quietly, studying the wreckage's design. "Look at the hull plating, the proportions, the engine configuration. I've never seen anything like it. Not Imperial, not Rebel, not even Hutt salvage. Could be from somewhere out past the rim," Core offered. "Some independent world we haven't cataloged. Maybe." Mira's attention shifted to movement near the wreckage. More stormtroopers arriving via transport, along with what looked like an Imperial intelligence officer. Judging by the gray uniform and the data terminal he carried, they're treating this like a priority investigation. Whatever crashed here, the Empire wants to know everything about it. As they watched, the intelligence officer activated his data terminal, and a holographic display flickered to life, projecting a rough schematic of the wreckage based on the troopers' scans. Mira's macro binoculars, equipped with a passive comm interceptor, picked up fragments of the officer's report being transmitted back to Imperial Command. Material composition, unidentified. No registry match for hull alloy. Possible foreign power signature. Recommend full quarantine of crash site pending further analysis. Foreign power, Mira repeated, lowering her macro binoculars. "Whatever this is, it's not from anywhere in the galaxy the Empire knows about," Core frowned. "That's impossible. The Empire's mapped every system, every hyperspace lane. Unless it's not from a system at all." Mira said slowly, an idea forming. She'd heard stories, old spacer legends, the kind told in cantinas by drunk pilots, about strange anomalies in deep space. Ships that vanished into nothing and reappeared light years away. Tales the Jedi had once investigated before the Purge about pocket dimensions and other realities beyond the boundaries of known space. Most considered such stories myths. But the wreckage below didn't match anything in known space, and the Empire's reaction, diverting Vader himself, suggested they were taking the possibility seriously. "Whoever's wearing that armor," Mira said, nodding toward the unconscious stormtrooper still lying where Chief had left him, now being examined by a medic. "They took down an Imperial soldier without firing a shot, then vanished. That's not luck, that's skill." "So we find them first," Core said, understanding dawning. "Before the Empire does." Mira nodded, already calculating routes through the canyon system that would avoid Imperial patrols. If they're as capable as that report suggests, they could be valuable. An ally against the Empire, maybe. Or a weapon someone else gets to first, Core finished grimly. "Either way, we can't let Vader find them alone." They retreated from the ridge, moving toward their speeder with renewed urgency. Behind them, the Imperial cordon around the crash site continued to expand. More troopers arriving by the minute, sensor probes being deployed to sweep the surrounding desert in concentric rings. Somewhere out there, in the vast emptiness of the Jundland wastes, a stranger from another reality was making his own assessment of this galaxy's players, and the race to find him, understand him, and claim him as either asset or enemy had only just begun. High above, the Vengeance dropped out of hyperspace into Tatooine's orbit, its massive form blotting out a portion of the star field. In its command bridge, Darth Vader stood at the viewport, sensing the void below with a clarity that unsettled even his disciplined mind. Whatever had arrived on this world, it was unlike anything he had encountered. Not Jedi, not Sith, not even the cold emptiness of a droid's processing core. Something else entirely, something that didn't belong, and Vader intended to find it. Master Chief had found temporary shelter in a network of natural caves carved into a rocky outcrop, roughly 4 kilometers from the crash site. The caves offered cover from aerial surveillance and a defensible position with limited approach vectors, standard tactical considerations that had kept him alive through countless campaigns. He'd spent the last several hours doing what Spartans did best: assessing, adapting, surviving. His shield generator remained at 60% capacity, the recharge rate sluggish. Using tools from his armor's built-in repair kit, he'd managed a partial diagnostic. The problem wasn't damage exactly. The hardware was intact. The issue was the ambient energy field of this place. His shields were calibrated to harmonize with the energy signatures of UNSC reactors, Covenant plasma cores, Forerunner technology. This galaxy's ambient energy, whatever powered the speeder bikes, the blaster weapons, the technology he'd glimpsed, operated on a different wavelength entirely. His shields could still generate a barrier, but the recharge cycle had to fight against an unfamiliar background interference, like trying to tune a radio to a station that didn't quite exist on the dial. The Stormtrooper's blaster pistol, which he disassembled and studied during the quiet hours, told him more. The weapon used a compact power cell, a blaster gas cartridge based on the chemical residue, to generate a focused energy bolt. Crude by UNSC standards in terms of sustained fire capability, but the bolts carried significant punch. And the technology was clearly mass-producible, evidenced by the uniformity of the parts. Chief reassembled the weapon and set it aside, and he had his own MA-40 and a sidearm. But understanding local weapons technology was valuable, both for potential resupply and for understanding what he might face in combat. His mind turned to the larger problem: the Empire. From what he'd gathered, the troopers' testimony, the structure of their patrol, the casual way they spoke of maintaining order against rebels. This was an authoritarian power exercising military control over civilian populations, opposed by some kind of organized resistance. The pattern was familiar in its broad strokes. The UNSC itself had fought insurrectionists, rebellious colonies seeking independence from Earth's central government. Chief had fought on the side of that central authority more than once. But something about the troopers' tone had bothered him. That we maintain order. Not we protect, not we defend. The phrasing suggested control for its own sake, rather than protection of a population that wanted protecting. It was a distinction Chief had learned to recognize. The difference between UNSC forces defending human colonies from Covenant extermination and the kind of occupying force that existed to suppress rather than safeguard. He needed more data before drawing conclusions. One soldier's word choice wasn't sufficient grounds for strategic assessment. A sound reached his audio sensors, faint, mechanical, distinct from the wind. Chief moved to the cave entrance, peering out across the darkening landscape. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the dunes, and in the distance, he spotted them. Two figures on foot, moving carefully through the rocks, clearly trying to avoid detection. One carried what looked like a rifle. The other moved with the practiced stealth of someone who knew this terrain intimately. Not Imperial. The armor was wrong. Lighter, less uniform, clearly improvised or salvaged rather than standard issue. Chief's threat assessment shifted. These could be the rebels the trooper had mentioned, or simply local inhabitants armed for self-defense in a hostile world. Either way, they were moving toward his position, not directly, but on a search pattern that would eventually intersect with the caves. He had options. Retreat deeper into the cave system and avoid contact. Set up an ambush position and capture them for questioning, similar to his approach with the Stormtrooper. Or make contact directly. Calculated risk for calculated gain. All Chief considered the broader strategic picture. He was alone in an unknown galaxy, with no way home and no allies. Eventually, he would need information about this galaxy's geography, its conflicts, its threats. He would need resources, food, water, possibly technology that could help repair his shield generator. He could not gather any of that by hiding indefinitely in a cave. And these two, whoever they were, had approached cautiously, scanning the terrain rather than charging in with overwhelming force. That suggested either fear or respect, possibly both. It suggested intelligence rather than blind aggression. Chief made his decision. He stepped out of the cave's shadow, deliberately positioning himself in the open, weapon lowered but not holstered. A posture that communicated both readiness and a lack of immediate hostile intent. A calculated gesture, the kind he'd used before when making first contact with unfamiliar but potentially non-hostile forces. The two figures froze instantly. Through the gathering dusk, Chief could make out details now. A Twi'lek female. Her head tails marking her as a species he had absolutely no record of. And a human male with the bearing of a soldier, perhaps ex-military based on posture and the way he held his weapon. Both raised their rifles, but neither fired. "Don't move," the human called out, his weapon trained on Chief's center mass. "Identify yourself." Chief remained motionless, processing. His translator software, refined further by the data he'd gathered from the captured comm device, parsed the words easily now. He chose his response carefully, direct, non-threatening, but not submissive. Spartans did not grovel, even when outnumbered or outgunned. Especially not then. "I am not your enemy," Chief said, his voice carrying clearly across the distance, modulated through his helmet's speakers into something that sounded almost gentle despite its mechanical undertone. "I crashed here. I have no quarrel with you." The Twi'lek, Mira, though Chief didn't yet know her name, lowered her rifle slightly, studying him with sharp, intelligent eyes. "You're the one from the wreckage, the one who took down the Imperial scout." "Yes." "Why?" Kor demanded, weapon still raised. "Why attack an Imperial patrol?" "He was searching for me," Chief replied. "I disabled him rather than killing him, non-lethal force to avoid escalation." Mira's expression shifted. Surprise, then something like calculation. "You could have killed him, easily from what the reports say, but you didn't. Unnecessary casualties create unnecessary complications," Chief said simply. It was doctrine drilled into every Spartan from childhood. Proportional response, minimize collateral damage, preserve options. The two exchanged a glance, communicating something silently between them. Finally, Mira lowered her rifle fully, though Kor remained tense, weapon still half raised. "My name's Mira Thess," she said. "This is Kor. We're with a local resistance cell, fighting against the Empire that controls this sector." She paused, studying Chief's imposing form, the alien design of his armor. "You're not from anywhere in this galaxy, are you?" It wasn't really a question. Chief considered his response, weighing the value of honesty against the risks of revealing too much to unknown parties. But deception, in his experience, rarely paid long-term dividends, especially with potential allies. "No," he said, "I'm not." "Figured as much," Kor muttered, finally lowering his weapon. "Great. As if the Empire wasn't bad enough, now we've got, aliens from another galaxy showing up?" "Another reality," Chief corrected, though he wasn't entirely certain of the distinction himself. "I don't know how I arrived here, or how to return." Mira studied him for a long moment, then seemed to come to a decision. The Empire's flooding this sector with troops because of you. Vader himself is here, orbiting right now, looking for you. If you stay out here in the open, they'll find you eventually. We have a base not far from here. It's not much, but it's shelter and we might be able to help each other. Chief processed this. An offer of alliance, however tentative, from a faction opposing the dominant power structure he'd encountered. It aligned with his initial assessment. If the Empire represented oppressive control, and these rebels represented resistance to that control, there might be common ground. But alliances, in Chief's experience, came with obligations and expectations. He would need to understand more about this rebellion, its goals, its methods, its leadership, before committing to anything beyond temporary cooperation. "I'll come with you," Chief said finally, "but I make no commitments beyond accepting shelter for now." Mira nodded, apparently satisfied with the terms. "Fair enough. Come on. Our speeder's not far, and we should move quickly. Vader's ship just made orbit, and if he's involved, things are about to get a lot more complicated." As the three of them moved through the gathering darkness toward the hidden speeder, Chief couldn't shake a particular thought. Somewhere above, in the cold vacuum of space, someone was actively searching for him. Something that, according to Mira, could sense things that shouldn't be sensible. He didn't understand the Force, not yet. But he understood being hunted, and he understood that sooner or later, the hunter would find him. The rebel safe house turned out to be a converted moisture farm, abandoned years ago, and repurposed with subtle modifications. False walls concealing, weapon caches, a hidden subterranean level housing communications equipment, and enough defensive positions to make an assault costly for any attacking force. Major Theron Dask met them at the entrance, his prosthetic arm whirring softly as he extended his remaining hand toward Chief in a gesture the Spartan recognized as a greeting, though he didn't reciprocate. His armored gauntlet would have crushed the man's hand by accident. "So you're the one causing all this fuss," Dask said, studying Chief with the appraising eye of a career soldier. "Mind telling me what exactly you are? Because Mira's report doesn't exactly cover giant in green armor from another dimension." "My name is John 117, Chief said. "Designation, Master Chief Petty Officer, Unsate Naval Special Warfare. I'm a soldier." "Uns," Dask repeated, testing the unfamiliar acronym. "Never heard of it. Where's that from?" "A galaxy I don't believe exists in your records," Chief replied. "I was caught in some kind of dimensional anomaly during a military operation. It deposited me here." Dask exchanged a look with Sarah Voss, who had joined them, datapad in hand, her expression a mixture of scientific curiosity and professional caution. "We picked up the energy signature from your crash," she said. "It doesn't match anything in our databases. Not Imperial, not Rebel, not even the old Jedi archives we've managed to recover. Whatever brought you here, it left a mark we've never seen. Can it be replicated?" Chief asked. "A way back to my galaxy?" Sarah shook her head slowly. "I don't know. I've never seen anything like this. If there's a way to study it, maybe. But that would take resources we don't have. Not with the Empire crawling all over this sector looking for you." Chief absorbed this. No immediate path home. He'd anticipated as much. But confirmation still settled into his strategic calculations with the weight of a long-term problem rather than a short-term obstacle. "Tell us about your galaxy," Dask said, gesturing for Chief to follow him into the underground command center. "What you fought, why you fight, might help us understand what we're dealing with and what you might be able to offer us." Chief considered the request. Information was currency in any conflict, and the rebellion had offered him shelter without immediate demands. A measured exchange seemed reasonable. Over the next hour, in the dim glow of the underground command center, Chief provided a condensed account, The war against the Covenant, an alliance of alien species bent on humanity's extermination in service of misguided religious zealotry. The Flood, a parasitic organism that consumed all sentient life it encountered. The role of Spartans like himself, genetically and cybernetically enhanced super soldiers, humanity's last line of defense. The rebels listened with a mixture of fascination and unease. Dask, in particular, seemed to focus on the scale of the conflicts Chief described. Wars that spanned star systems, weapons capable of destroying entire planets, enemies that sought not conquest but annihilation. Sounds like your galaxy makes ours look tame by comparison, Dask said finally, though there was no levity in his tone. Every galaxy has its own scale of conflict, Chief replied. Yours has the Empire, mine had the Covenant. The specifics differ, the fundamental question doesn't. Who do you fight for, and why? And who do you fight for, Chief? Sarah asked quietly. Now that you're here. It was the question Chief had been turning over since his arrival. Back home, the answer had always been simple. Humanity, the unseen, the chain of command that, for all its flaws, represented the collective will of a species fighting for survival. Here, those structures didn't exist. He had no orders, no command authority to answer to, no mission parameters beyond his own judgment. I haven't decided, Chief said honestly. I need to understand more about your conflict before I commit to anything. Dask nodded, apparently expecting this answer. Fair enough? Let me give you the short version then. He activated a holographic display, showing a stylized map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems, with regions marked in red representing Imperial control, scattered points in blue representing known rebel cells and sympathetic worlds. The Empire used to be the Republic, a democratic government spanning the galaxy, more or less. About 20 years ago, the Republic's chancellor declared himself emperor, dissolved the Senate's actual power, and turned the military apparatus that used to protect the Republic into an instrument of his personal rule. Since then, it's been this. Dask gestured at the map, the overwhelming red dominance evident even to Chief's untrained eye. The rebellion, Dask continued, is what's left of people who refuse to accept that. Former Republic senators, military officers, ordinary citizens who've had enough of imperial oppression, forced labor, planetary bombardments, entire species enslaved or exterminated if they're inconvenient to imperial interests. We're outgunned, outnumbered, and most days it feels like we're losing. But about 3 days ago, we destroyed the Death Star, a planet-killing superweapon the Empire had been building for years, biggest victory we've had in the war so far. And now the Empire's hunting the pilot responsible, Sarah added, along with anyone associated with the rebellion. Vader's been personally overseeing that search, which is, incidentally, why he's currently in orbit around this planet. Your arrival might have given him a convenient distraction, or it might mean he's looking for two things at once now. Chief processed the strategic picture. A galaxy-spanning authoritarian regime, opposed by a smaller but ideologically driven resistance movement. The Empire's methods, planetary bombardments, slavery, extermination of inconvenient populations, mirrored, in some uncomfortable ways, tactics the Covenant had used against human colonies. Glassing planets, wholesale extermination. But the rebellion's position, outgunned, outnumbered, fighting an uphill battle against overwhelming force, also mirrored humanity's position against the Covenant during the early years of that war. Desperate, under-equipped, fighting for survival against odds that seemed insurmountable. The parallel wasn't perfect. Chief understood that. The Covenant had been an external threat, alien invaders with no claim to the worlds they attacked. The Empire, from what Dask described, had emerged from within. A democratic government corrupted from the inside, turning its own apparatus of power against its own citizens. That distinction mattered. It meant the conflict here wasn't simply us versus them in the way Chief's war had been. It was, in some sense, a civil war, a galaxy divided against itself. This Vader, Chief said, returning to the more immediate concern. Tell me about him. What can he do? Dask and Sarah exchanged a glance, and it was Mira who answered, her voice carrying a weight of personal experience. Vader is Not like other Imperial officers. He's a Sith Lord, wields something called the Force, an energy field that gives him abilities that defy normal physics. Telekinesis, mind manipulation. He can choke a man to death from across a room without touching him, and he's deadly with a lightsaber, an energy blade that can cut through almost anything. He's also relentless, Sarah added. Once he's hunting something, he doesn't stop. The fact that he diverted his entire fleet to Tatooine, on top of the search for the Death Star pilot, tells me he considers whatever he sensed from your arrival to be significant, possibly even more significant than the pilot. Chief absorbed this information, cross-referencing it against everything he'd observed and been told. An enemy commander with abilities that defied conventional physics, not unlike some of the more exotic Covenant tech he'd encountered, though the description suggested something more fundamentally different. Energy manipulation through some kind of innate ability rather than technology. If he's searching for me specifically, Chief said, then my presence here puts you at risk. The longer I stay, the more attention this location draws. We're aware, Dask said grimly, which is why we need to figure out our next move quickly. Either we get you off this rock before Vader's forces lock down the entire planet, or, he paused, glancing at Sarah, or we use the chaos your presence is causing to our advantage, Sarah finished. The Empire's diverting resources to find you. That's resources not being used to hunt down our other selves, our supply lines, our people. If we can keep them chasing shadows while we evacuate critical assets from this sector. You'd be using me as a distraction, Chief said. It wasn't an accusation, simply an observation. We'd be asking for your help, Dask corrected. There's a difference, and we wouldn't ask if you didn't want to. Chief considered this, using his presence strategically, drawing Imperial attention while the rebellion repositioned its assets, aligned with his combat instincts. Misdirection, distraction, drawing enemy forces into unfavorable engagements. It was a role he understood, but it also meant deliberately engaging with this galaxy's conflict, choosing a side, however provisionally, rather than remaining neutral while he searched for a way home. Before I decide, Chief said, I want more information about the Empire's military capabilities, about what resources you have, and about what, exactly, you'd expect from me beyond serving as bait. Dask nodded, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. Cautious. I respect that. Let's talk specifics then. As the rebels began pulling up tactical displays, troop deployment maps, and equipment manifests, Chief settled in to listen, gathering the information he'd need to make an informed decision. Outside, in the gathering night, the twin moons of Tatooine rose over the desert, and somewhere in the darkness, Imperial search parties continued their methodical sweep of the Jundland wastes, drawing steadily closer to the safe house with each passing hour. The Imperial sweep reached the outer perimeter of the safe house at 0200 hours. Chief had been awake the entire night. Spartans required less sleep than ordinary humans, and the tactical situation demanded vigilance regardless. He'd spent the hours studying the rebels' equipment, cross-referencing capabilities, and running through scenarios in his mind. When the first proximity alert sounded through the base's rudimentary sensor network, he was already moving toward the surface access point before Dask had finished shouting orders. Probe droids, Sarah called out from the communications room, her voice tight with controlled urgency. 3 of them, moving in a search grid. Standard Imperial deployment pattern. If they find anything, they'll transmit our position before we can take them down. How long until ground forces follow? Dask asked, already strapping on a blaster rifle. If the probes report back, 20 minutes, maybe less. Vader's not messing around. He's got 2 full companies of troopers on the ground already, plus AT-ST walkers. Chief reached the surface hatch and cracked it open just enough to observe. In the pre-dawn darkness, he spotted the probe droids, spherical machines roughly a meter in diameter, hovering on repulsor fields, sweeping the terrain with rotating sensor arrays and spotlights. They moved with mechanical patience, methodical, covering ground in overlapping search patterns. I can eliminate them, Chief said quietly. Quietly, if your team can mask the resulting debris and prevent transmission. Mask debris, sure, Sarah replied. But probe droids transmit continuously. real-time telemetry. If you destroy one, Imperial Command will know within seconds, even if you do it silently. Chief processed this. Destroying the probes would buy time, but also confirm hostile presence in the area, accelerating Imperial response rather than delaying it. Then we don't destroy them, Chief said. We need to disable their transmission capability without triggering a destruct signal. Can your equipment jam their telemetry? For a short window, maybe, Sarah said, already working at a console. I can rig a localized EM pulse, but it'll only last a few seconds, and it'll be obvious to anyone monitoring those probes that something interfered with their signal. A few seconds is enough, Chief said. He moved before anyone could question further, slipping through the surface hatch and into the night. The desert air was cold, a stark contrast to the daytime heat, and the twin moons cast pale light across the dunes. Chief moved low and fast, using the terrain's natural depressions to avoid the probe droid's sensor sweeps. The nearest probe hovered roughly 200 meters from the safe house entrance, its sensor array sweeping in slow arcs. Chief calculated trajectory, timing, the probe's rotation cycle. He needed to reach it during the brief window when its sensors faced away from his approach vector, disable its transmission array before it could complete a full rotation, and do so within the few-second window Sarah's EM pulse would provide. Ready? Sarah's voice crackled through the comm device Chief had taken from the Stormtrooper, now repurposed for short-range communication with the rebel base. On my mark, Chief replied. He calculated the probe's rotation, timed his approach, and surged forward in a burst of augmented speed that, even with his shields at reduced capacity, carried him across open ground faster than any unaugmented human could manage. Now, a brief electromagnetic pulse rippled outward from the safe house, invisible but for the slight flicker in the probe's running lights. In that instant, Chief reached the droid, his armored hand closing around its primary sensor housing. With practiced precision, he located the seam where the transmission array connected to the main processing core and, rather than ripping the components apart, which might trigger a self-destruct or distress signal, he carefully severed the connection with a tool from his suit's repair kit, a precise cut that disabled the comm array without damaging the rest of the droid. The probe drifted, directionless for a moment, then resumed its search pattern, now blind to outside communication but otherwise functional, its onboard systems unaware that anything had changed. Chief moved to the second probe, repeating the EM pulse and disable sequence with Sarah's coordination. The third probe proved more challenging. Its search pattern had drifted closer to the safe house's main entrance, putting it within range of motion sensors that, if triggered, would alert nearby ground patrols regardless of the probe's own status. Chief adjusted his approach, using a rock formation to break the probe's line of sight, then executed the same disabling maneuver. Within minutes, all three probes continued their search patterns, sensors active, but transmission arrays silent. Blind sentinels reporting nothing because they had nothing to report and no way to say so. That'll buy us time, Sarah said as Chief returned to the safe house, but not much. Imperial protocol requires probes to report in on a schedule. When these don't, Command will assume malfunction or interference and send a follow-up sweep, probably with troopers on foot this time, backed by walkers. How much time does that give us? Dask asked. An hour, maybe two. Dask exhaled heavily, running a hand over his face. Not enough time to fully evacuate, but enough to get our most critical people and equipment out. Sarah, start the evacuation protocol. Priority on the encryption keys and the supply manifests. Mira, Core, prep the speeders. As the rebels scrambled into action, Chief found himself once again at the center of a tactical decision point. The immediate crisis, the probe droids, had been addressed. But the larger problem remained. Imperial forces, led by an enemy with abilities Chief still didn't fully understand, were closing in on this location specifically because of his presence. Dask, Chief said as the Major moved past him toward the comm room. If your evacuation requires an hour, and Imperial ground forces are an hour or less away, someone needs to delay them, create a distraction at a different location, draw their attention away from this position. Dask paused, understanding the implication. You're talking about engaging Imperial forces directly, alone. I'm talking about ensuring your people have time to evacuate, Chief corrected. My shields are at reduced capacity, but my offensive capabilities remain largely intact. A direct engagement, at a location distant from this safe house, would draw search efforts away from here while creating the appearance of the anomaly, me, moving in a different direction. And if Vader himself responds to that engagement? Sarah asked, having paused in her work to listen. Then I'll have his attention instead of yours, Chief said simply. The room fell silent for a moment. Dask studied Chief, weighing the offer, the risk, the implications. Finally, he nodded slowly. There's a ridge about 8 kilometers northeast of here. Rocky terrain, defensible. Far enough from the safe house that any engagement there won't immediately implicate this location. If you're seen there, fighting, it'll look like the anomaly is operating independently, moving through the wastes. That works, Chief said. Chief, Mira said, stepping forward, concern evident in her voice, despite the short time they'd known each other. If Vader comes for you personally, we don't know what you're capable of against someone like him. The stories about what he's done to Jedi, to soldiers far more experienced than Stormtroopers. I appreciate the concern, Chief said, but your people's survival takes priority. I've faced overwhelming odds before. I intend to survive this, and to learn what I can about this enemy in the process. Information that will help your rebellion, regardless of outcome. It wasn't false bravado. Chief didn't deal in bravado at all. It was simply an honest assessment. He had faced the Covenant, the Flood, enemies whose power had seemed insurmountable until adaptation and determination found a way through. Whatever this force was, whatever Vader's capabilities, Chief intended to approach the engagement the same way he approached every battle. Methodically, adaptively, and with full commitment. 8 kilometers northeast, Chief confirmed, checking his weapons charge and ammunition count one final time. I'll move now, while it's still dark. By the time Imperial forces respond, your evacuation should be well underway. Chief, Dask said, as the Spartan moved toward the surface hatch. Whatever happens out there, thank you. We just met you, and you're already risking your life for people you don't owe anything to. Chief paused at the hatch, considering the Major's words. Soldiers protect people who need protecting, he said simply. That doesn't change, regardless of which galaxy I'm in. With that, he slipped into the night, moving northeast toward the ridge Dask had described, his shields humming at reduced capacity, his weapon ready, and the weight of an entire galaxy's conflict settling onto his shoulders with the same calm acceptance he'd carried through every battle of his life. Behind him, the rebel safe house began its evacuation, racing against a clock that Imperial forces, and one very determined Sith Lord, were rapidly winding down. Dawn broke over the Jundland wastes in shades of amber and rose, the binary suns casting long shadows across the rocky ridge where Master Chief had positioned himself. He'd spent the pre-dawn hours preparing the terrain, identifying choke points, lines of sight, fallback positions. The ridge offered natural cover, jagged outcroppings, a narrow canyon approach that would force any attacking force into a bottleneck, and elevated positions that gave him commanding views of the surrounding desert. His MA-40 assault rifle was loaded, his sidearm holstered, and he distributed his remaining grenades strategically across likely engagement zones. His shields hummed at 60%, not ideal, but functional. He'd faced worse odds with less preparation. The first sign of Imperial forces came as a distant rumble, growing steadily louder, the unmistakable sound of heavy machinery moving across open terrain. Chief's enhanced hearing picked up the rhythmic clank of mechanical legs long before he saw them crest the horizon. ATST walkers, 2 of them, bipedal war machines, roughly 8 meters tall, their armored chassis bristling with weapon mounts. Behind them marched 2 columns of stormtroopers, perhaps 30 in total, moving with the disciplined formation of soldiers expecting to overwhelm whatever they found through sheer numbers. Chief studied the approaching force from his elevated position, cataloging weak points. The ATST walkers moved on articulated legs, vulnerable joints. If he could get close enough, their forward-facing weapon mounts suggested limited rear coverage. The stormtroopers, despite their numbers, moved with the confidence of soldiers who'd never faced an enemy capable of matching their technology. Their formation was tight, predictable, optimized for suppressing fire rather than against an opponent who could close distance quickly. This was, Chief reflected, exactly the kind of engagement his training had prepared him for. Numerical superiority meant little against superior positioning, superior speed, and a willingness to take the fight to the enemy rather than wait to be overwhelmed. He waited until the lead walker entered the narrow canyon approach, the bottleneck he'd identified hours earlier, then moved. Chief's first action was simple: a grenade, thrown with calculated precision, detonating beneath the lead ATST's leg joint. The explosion wasn't enough to destroy the walker outright, but it shattered the joint's hydraulic systems, and the massive machine lurched, stumbled, and crashed sideways into the canyon wall with a grinding shriek of tortured metal. The pilot, disoriented, fired wildly, blaster cannon rounds scorching the rock face, but missing Chief entirely. The Stormtroopers, caught in the narrow canyon behind the crippled walker, scrambled for cover, shouting orders that quickly dissolved into chaos as their formation collapsed in the confined space. Chief used the confusion to his advantage, moving along the ridge with augmented speed, putting himself in a flanking position before the troopers could establish a coherent defensive line. The second ATST, still functional, swung its weapons toward Chief's new position, cannon fire tearing into the rocks where he'd stood moments earlier. But Chief was already moving, closing the distance with the machine rather than retreating from it. His MA-40 chattered, rounds sparking off the walker's armored hull, not enough to penetrate, but enough to draw the pilot's attention, forcing the walker to track him rather than the scattered troopers below. Chief reached the walker's leg in seconds, and in a display of augmented strength that would have seemed impossible to any observer unfamiliar with Spartan capabilities, he leaped onto the machine's articulated joint, found purchase on the armored plating, and began climbing toward the cockpit. The pilot, realizing too late what was happening, attempted to shake the intruder loose, the walker lurching and twisting. But Chief held on, using his momentum to swing himself onto the cockpit's upper hull. A precise strike, Chief's armored fist, augmented by Spartan strength, slamming into the cockpit's viewport, cracked the reinforced transparasteel. A second strike shattered it entirely. The pilot, exposed, raised a sidearm, but Chief was faster, his hand closing around the pilot's wrist and wrenching the weapon away before delivering a controlled strike that rendered the man unconscious. The ATST, its pilot incapacitated, ground to a halt, servos whining as backup systems attempted to stabilize the now unpiloted machine. Below, the Stormtroopers had regrouped enough to open fire on Chief's position atop the disabled walker. Blaster bolts sparked against his shields, the energy barrier flickering with each impact. His shields, weakened as they were, absorbed perhaps a dozen hits before the indicator in his HUD shifted from amber to red, warning of imminent failure. Chief dropped from the walker, using its bulk as cover, and assessed the situation. 30 troopers, now spread across the canyon floor, 2 walkers disabled but not destroyed, and his shields critically low. A direct firefight, even with his speed and strength advantages, risked depleting his shields entirely, after which his armor alone would provide protection, but he'd be vulnerable to sustained fire in a way he hadn't been since this campaign began. Time to adapt. Chief retrieved the disassembled blaster components he'd studied earlier, not as weapons, but as understanding. He knew now how these weapons functioned, how their power cells discharged, how their barrels focused energy. And he knew, from his observations of the canyon's rock formations, that this particular type of sedimentary stone contained mineral deposits with high conductivity. He'd noted it during his initial reconnaissance, filed away as potentially useful information. He moved to a fallen trooper's weapon, one he'd disabled earlier in the engagement, and quickly modified it, redirecting its power cell's discharge through the rock formation rather than through the weapon's barrel. The resulting effect wasn't a precise weapon, but it didn't need to be. The modified power cell, overloaded, discharged its entire stored energy through the mineral-rich rock in a cascading electrical surge that arced across the canyon floor, disrupting the electronic systems of every stormtrooper's armor and weapon within a 30-meter radius. Blaster rifles sparked and died, Helmet comms crackled with static and went silent. Servo-assisted armor joints locked up, sending troopers stumbling as their suits' minor mobility enhancements failed simultaneously. In the chaos, Chief moved. He worked through the disoriented troopers with brutal efficiency, each strike calculated to incapacitate rather than kill, a philosophy he maintained. Even now, even against an enemy that had shown him no such restraint. Spartans were weapons of war, but they were not indiscriminate killers. Every unconscious trooper was one less active combatant, without the moral and strategic complications of unnecessary deaths. Within minutes, the canyon fell silent. 30 stormtroopers lay incapacitated across the canyon floor, 2 AT-ST walkers disabled, their crews unconscious. Chief stood amid the wreckage, his shields fully depleted but his armor intact, breathing steady despite the exertion. He'd won, but the engagement had taken longer than anticipated, and the electrical discharge from his improvised weapon would have been visible for kilometers, a flare of energy that any orbital sensor array would register instantly. Chief's HUD flickered with a proximity warning. Something was approaching, fast, from above. He looked up. A shuttle, sleek and predatory in design, descended from the brightening sky, its arrival marked by a distinctive whine of repulsor engines. It settled onto the canyon floor perhaps 100 meters from Chief's position, its boarding ramp lowering with mechanical precision. A figure emerged from the shuttle's interior, tall, imposing, clad entirely in black armor that bore no resemblance to the white-armored troopers Chief had just defeated. A cape billowed behind the figure, and a distinctive mechanical breathing sound, rhythmic and amplified, carried across the canyon's sudden silence. Chief's threat assessment protocols flagged the figure immediately as significant, not based on visible weaponry, which appeared minimal, but based on bearing, presence, and the way the air itself seemed to grow heavier, charged with an energy Chief's sensors couldn't quantify but could somehow detect. "Impressive," the figure said, his voice deep and mechanically resonant, carrying clearly across the canyon despite the distance. 30 stormtroopers and 2 AT-ST walkers, defeated without lethal force. You are disciplined, controlled, not what I expected from whatever you are. Chief raised his weapon, more out of procedure than genuine expectation that it would prove effective, and studied the approaching figure. Darth Vader, the Sith Lord the rebels had warned him about. "I am not your enemy," Chief said, the same words he'd used with Mira and Kor, though he suspected they would carry less weight here. "Everyone who opposes the Empire is my enemy," Vader replied, continuing his unhurried approach, seemingly unconcerned by Chief's weapon. "And you have just incapacitated 30 of the Emperor's soldiers. That makes you my enemy, regardless of your intentions." "I defended myself and others from an unprovoked attack," Chief said. "Unprovoked?" Vader's tone carried something that might have been amusement, though the vocoder rendered it difficult to discern. "You arrived in this system without authorization, evaded Imperial patrols, assaulted Imperial personnel, and have now made contact with known rebel sympathizers. From the Empire's perspective, your actions speak for themselves." Chief processed this. From a certain perspective, Vader's assessment wasn't inaccurate. Chief had, after all, chosen to align himself with the rebellion, however provisionally. He'd made his choice, and now faced the consequences of that choice, in the form of this Sith Lord, who radiated a sense of controlled, immense power that Chief's instincts, honed by years of facing enemies who radiated similar auras of lethality, recognized as genuinely dangerous. "What do you want?" Chief asked directly. Vader stopped, perhaps 50 meters away now, studying Chief with what Chief assumed were eyes hidden behind that imposing mask. "I want to know what you are, where you come from, and whether you represent a threat to the Empire that extends beyond this single engagement. And if I refuse to answer, then I will take the answers I require by other means," Vader said, and Chief felt something shift in the air. A pressure, invisible but undeniable, gathering around the Sith Lord like a held breath before a storm. "The Force does not require your cooperation, soldier, only your presence." Chief's grip on his weapon tightened, every combat instinct he possessed screaming that this engagement would be unlike anything he'd faced before. Not a battle of weapons and tactics alone, but something else entirely. something his enhanced reflexes and years of training might not be enough to overcome. But Spartans did not retreat from impossible odds. They adapted, they endured, they found a way through. "Then let's find out what I am," Chief said, and braced himself as Darth Vader raised one gloved hand toward him. Vader's outstretched hand closed into a fist, and Chief felt the invisible pressure intensify, a crushing force converging on his chest, the same telekinetic chokehold the rebels had described as Vader's signature execution method. Chief had faced energy shields failing, atmospheric pressure changes during depressurization, even the crushing gravitational anomalies of Forerunner installations. This felt different, not a physical force acting on his armor, but something attempting to act directly on him, bypassing his armor's structural integrity entirely. His shields, though depleted, flared with a final defensive pulse, not enough to stop the force, but enough to disrupt its focus for a critical half-second. Chief used that half-second. He moved laterally, breaking whatever invisible grip Vader had been establishing, putting an outcropping of rock between himself and the Sith Lord's direct line of whatever this force was. Sensory data, line of sight, line of effect. Chief didn't have the vocabulary for it, but he understood the principle. Vader's power, whatever its nature, seemed to require some kind of perceptual connection to its target. "Interesting," Vader said, and Chief heard something in the mechanical voice that sounded almost like genuine surprise. "You resist the Force not through strength, but through absence. You are difficult to grasp, soldier, as though you exist at the edge of what the Force can perceive." Chief used the moment to reposition, putting distance between himself and Vader while maintaining cover. His MA-40 was useless against an opponent who could presumably deflect or avoid conventional projectiles. The rebels had mentioned lightsabers cutting through nearly anything, and Chief suspected blaster bolts, let alone his rifle's rounds, would fare little better. But Chief had other tools. His frag grenades remained, and more importantly, he had terrain knowledge, this canyon, which he'd spent hours studying before the Stormtrooper engagement. If conventional combat tactics proved ineffective against Vader's abilities, perhaps unconventional applications of the environment itself might create opportunities. Vader advanced, igniting his lightsaber with a snap hiss that Chief's audio sensors registered as carrying frequencies far beyond normal human hearing range. Blade itself seemed to hum with contained energy, casting the canyon in harsh crimson light. Chief had never seen anything like it. A blade of pure energy, roughly a meter long, that the Sith Lord wielded with the easy confidence of someone who had killed countless opponents with it. "Your weapon is irrelevant," Vader said, closing the distance with unnatural speed, faster than his measured walk had suggested, covering the remaining meters between them in what felt like an instant. "As is your armor against this blade." Chief didn't argue. Instead, as Vader's lightsaber arced toward him in a strike, clearly intended to test his defenses, Chief did something the Sith Lord likely hadn't anticipated. He didn't retreat, didn't attempt to block with his armor, didn't raise his weapon defensively. He threw a grenade directly at Vader's feet. The explosion, at point-blank range, wasn't intended to harm Vader directly. Chief doubted conventional explosives would do more than singe that armor, but the blast kicked up a massive cloud of sand and debris, momentarily obscuring Vader's vision and, more importantly, disrupting whatever sensory connection the Force required to track Chief's position. In the chaos of dust and debris, Chief moved, not away, but toward Vader, closing distance while the Sith Lord was momentarily blinded. Spartans trained extensively in close-quarters combat, and Chief's enhanced strength and speed, even without functioning shields, remained formidable. He struck Vader directly, a powered fist slamming into the Sith Lord's chest plate, with enough force to stagger even that imposing figure. Vader, for the first time, took a step backward, his lightsaber swinging in a defensive arc that Chief barely avoided, the energy blade passing close enough that Chief's armor's sensors registered a spike in ambient temperature. "You fight without the Force," Vader said, recovering his footing with disturbing speed. "Yet you fight as though you sense it regardless." "How?" "Training," Chief replied simply, circling, looking for another opening. "Adaptation. I've fought enemies who could do things that shouldn't be possible. I learn how to fight them anyway." The dust cloud began to settle, and Vader's lightsaber swept toward Chief in a series of strikes. Fast, precise, clearly the product of decades of combat experience. Chief dodged, blocked with his armored gauntlets where he could. The lightsaber's blade, he discovered, could be deflected if it struck at certain angles against his armor's hardest plating, though each contact left scorched grooves in the titanium, and looked for opportunities. The engagement was, Chief realized, unsustainable in its current form. Vader's lightsaber could eventually cut through his armor, given enough contact. His depleted shields offered no protection, and Vader's telekinetic abilities, while temporarily disrupted by the dust cloud, would reassert themselves once visibility cleared. He needed to change the terms of engagement. Chief retreated, not in panic, but with calculated purpose, toward the disabled AT-ST walker he'd defeated earlier. Vader pursued, lightsaber humming, clearly anticipating that Chief intended to use the walker as cover or a weapon platform. But Chief had something else in mind. The walker's main reactor, damaged but not destroyed during the earlier engagement, still contained a significant energy charge. The kind of charge that, if deliberately ruptured, would create an explosion considerably more powerful than Chief's grenades. Chief had noted this during his initial assessment of the disabled machine, filed away as a potential resource. As Vader closed in, lightsaber raised for what would likely be a decisive strike, Chief did something unexpected. He stood his ground directly beside the walker's reactor housing, weapon raised in a defensive posture that invited attack rather than avoided it. Vader struck. The lightsaber's blade descended toward Chief's position, and Chief, at the last possible instant, dove aside, allowing the energy blade to continue its arc directly into the walker's reactor housing. The resulting explosion was immense. The walker's reactor, breached by Vader's lightsaber, detonated with the force of a small bomb, throwing both combatants backward in a wave of heat, light, and pressure. Chief, who had positioned himself to be thrown clear by the blast's directional force, rolled with the impact, using his armor's structural integrity to absorb what would have been lethal trauma to an unaugmented human. Vader, caught more directly in the blast's epicenter, was hurled backward across the canyon floor, his cape smoldering, his armor scorched but, Chief observed with grim respect, apparently still functional. The Sith Lord rose to his feet within seconds, seemingly unfazed by an explosion that would have killed most beings outright. A clever tactic, Vader said, his voice carrying a note that, despite the mechanical distortion, sounded almost approving, sacrificing tactical position for an environmental advantage. You think like a soldier who has fought enemies with abilities beyond conventional understanding before. I have, Chief confirmed, rising as well, his armor scorched but intact, his shields, miraculously, showing a faint readout of partial recharge, the explosion's energy discharge having somehow interacted with his shield generator in a way that provided an unexpected boost. Chief filed this observation away. Explosive energy discharges, in this galaxy, apparently could partially recharge his shields. Useful information, if he survived long enough to apply it. The two combatants faced each other across the smoking ruins of the canyon, the AT-ST walker reduced to twisted, burning wreckage between them. Vader's lightsaber remained ignited, casting flickering crimson light across the scene. Chief's weapon, though largely useless against the Sith Lord directly, remained raised, not as a genuine threat, but as a statement of continued resistance. "You have caused considerable damage to Imperial forces," Vader said, "and demonstrated capabilities and tactical thinking that suggest you are no mere anomaly. The question remains, what are you? And what do you intend?" Chief considered his response carefully. Continued combat, in his current state. Shields partially recharged but still far from optimal. Ammunition limited. Facing an opponent whose full capabilities remained largely untested, seemed unlikely to end favorably. But surrender, or providing information that might compromise the rebellion's position, was equally unacceptable. "I'm a soldier," Chief said again, "displaced from my own galaxy by forces I don't fully understand. I have no quarrel with your empire beyond the fact that your forces attacked me, and I defended myself. If you withdraw, I have no further reason to engage. And if I do not withdraw, then this continues," Chief said simply. until one of us can no longer continue." Vader studied him for a long moment, or seemed to, behind that impenetrable mask, and something in the air shifted again, the gathering pressure of the Force intensifying once more, but differently this time. Less an attack, more an assessment, as though Vader were attempting to perceive something about Chief that had, until now, remained hidden. "You speak the truth," Vader said finally, and there was something in his tone that Chief couldn't quite parse. Not quite strong respect, but perhaps acknowledgement. And yet truth and utility are not always aligned. "The Emperor will want to know of your existence, soldier, of your origin. Whether as ally, weapon, or specimen remains to be determined." The lightsaber's blade retracted with a hiss, plunging the canyon back into the harsh light of the rising suns. Vader straightened, his cape settling around his imposing frame. "This engagement is concluded, for now," Vader said. "But know this, the Empire does not forget anomalies, soldier. And the Emperor's interest, once piqued, rarely fades. We will meet again, and on that occasion, I suspect the terms will be different." With that, Vader turned and strode back toward his waiting shuttle, leaving Chief standing amid the wreckage of the engagement. 2 AT-ST walkers destroyed, 30 stormtroopers incapacitated, and a Sith Lord who had, for reasons Chief couldn't fully fathom, chosen to disengage rather than press an advantage that, by all accounts, should have been decisive. Chief watched the shuttle ascend into the brightening sky, his tactical mind already processing the encounter. Vader's capabilities, his apparent restraint, the strange absence he'd mentioned regarding Chief's relationship with the Force. None of it provided immediate answers, but all of it represented data. Data that, Chief suspected, would prove critical in whatever came next. His comm device crackled. "Chief?" Mira's voice, tense with concern. "We saw the explosion from here. Are you... Is Vader?" "I'm alive," Chief replied. "Vader's withdrawn. For now. How's the evacuation?" "Almost complete," Mira said, relief evident in her voice. "Chief, what happened out there?" "Vader doesn't just walk away from engagements. He got the information he wanted," Chief said, beginning the long walk back toward the safe house, his shield slowly recharging, his mind already turning toward the larger strategic picture. "Or enough of it, for now." "But Mira," he said, "this isn't over. The Empire's going to keep looking for me. And if the Emperor himself becomes involved, then we need to talk," Mira finished. "About what happens next. About where you fit into all this." "Agreed," Chief said, watching Vader's shuttle vanish into the morning sky, carrying with it a report that would, Chief suspected, set in motion consequences far beyond a single skirmish in a desert canyon. "Because I have a feeling this galaxy just became a lot more complicated. For everyone." 3 days passed in tense preparation. The rebel cell had relocated to a more secure base, an abandoned Shirka mining facility carved into a mesa, far from Imperial patrol routes, and used the time to plan their next move. Chief spent those days in continued cooperation with the rebellion, sharing tactical knowledge, helping fortify their position, and gathering as much information about this galaxy as he could. But the question Mira had raised, where he fit into all this, remained unresolved. It was Sarah who brought the news that changed everything. "Imperial communications traffic just spiked across the entire sector," she announced, bursting into the makeshift command center, her datapad trembling slightly in her grip. "Something big is happening. The Emperor himself has issued a directive. Vader's been ordered to capture the anomaly by any means necessary. And he's bringing reinforcements. A lot of them." "How many is a lot?" Dask asked grimly. 3 Star Destroyers, inbound to Tatooine within the hour. Plus," Sarah hesitated, "Vader's personal Inquisitorius unit. Force-sensitive hunters, trained specifically to track down anomalies the Force can't easily perceive. They're being deployed specifically because of Chief." The room fell silent. Chief processed the implications. The Empire had escalated dramatically. Not merely additional troops, but specialized assets designed specifically to counter whatever made him difficult for Vader to perceive through the Force. "There's more," Sarah continued, voice tightening. "Our intelligence suggests the Emperor has authorized contingency measures if Chief can't be captured intact. A planetary bombardment of this entire region, They're willing to glass half of Tatooine to either capture or eliminate him. They'd destroy an entire region of a planet, Mira said, horror evident in her voice. Just to deal with one person? Apparently, the Emperor considers the unknown variable more dangerous than the political cost of a localized bombardment on an outer rim world nobody important cares about, Sarah said bitterly. Chief absorbed this information with the calm of a man accustomed to high-stakes calculations, though something cold settled in his chest. This galaxy's populations, farmers, settlers, ordinary people like the moisture farmers he'd glimpsed on his first day here, would suffer and die because of his presence. Collateral damage on a planetary scale, the kind of calculus the Covenant had employed against human worlds. How long do we have before the fleet arrives? Chief asked. Less than an hour, Sarah said. And once they're in position, the Inquisitors will begin their search. If they find this base, they'll find all of us, Dask finished grimly. And if the bombardment authorization is real, they might not even wait to confirm Chief's presence before opening fire. Chief made his decision in the span of a heartbeat, the kind of swift, decisive calculation that had defined his service record. I need to draw their attention away from this base, completely. If the fleet's focus shifts entirely to me, in a location distant enough from any civilian population, the bombardment threat becomes irrelevant. They won't level a populated area to hit a target they can locate precisely elsewhere. Chief, 3 Star Destroyers and Inquisitors. That's not a fight you can win, Mira said urgently. Not even with everything you've shown us. I don't need to win, Chief said. I need to be visible, dangerous enough to warrant their full attention, and far enough away that any response, even an extreme one, doesn't endanger civilians or this base. After that, he paused, considering. I'll adapt. There's a place, Kor said suddenly, looking up from a terrain map he'd been studying. Old Circa excavation site, about 40 kilometers west. Deep canyon system, completely uninhabited, abandoned mining equipment everywhere. If you made a stand there, drew their fire, the Empire could bombard that whole region, and the only thing they'd destroy is rock and old machinery. And if the fleet focuses entirely on that location, Sarah added, already seeing the strategic value, it gives us a window, not just to evacuate this base, but to strike at something else. Something that might actually matter. What do you mean? Dask asked. Sarah pulled up a new display. Imperial fleet deployment patterns, troop movements, supply lines. If 3 Star Destroyers redirect to hunt Chief at the excavation site, that's 3 Star Destroyers not guarding the main Imperial logistics hub in this sector. An orbital supply depot that's been resupplying Vader's search operation. If we hit that depot while the fleet's distracted, we cripple Imperial operations across this entire sector for months. It would be the biggest blow to Imperial logistics since the Death Star. The room buzzed with sudden energy, a plan forming, audacious but potentially decisive. This isn't just about saving this base anymore, Dask said slowly, looking at Chief with new understanding. This could be a genuine strategic victory for the rebellion. I'm willing to serve as the distraction, Chief said, but understand, if Vader's Inquisitors are as capable as described, and the fleet brings overwhelming firepower, the odds of my survival aren't favorable. We know, Mira said quietly, and we're asking anyway. That's exactly the kind of choice you said you needed to understand about this galaxy. The kind we're forced to make every day. Chief considered this. He'd spent days observing this conflict, weighing the Empire against the rebellion, searching for the objectively correct side in a galaxy that, as Mira had once suggested, might not have one. But this, a choice to risk everything not for ideology, but to protect civilians and strike a meaningful blow against an oppressive power, resonated with something fundamental in Chief's own values. Not because the rebellion was inherently good, but because, in this moment, their goals aligned with his own. Protect the vulnerable. Strike at those who threaten them. I'll do it, Chief said. Get your strike team ready. I'll head to the excavation site now. The sooner the fleet's attention shifts there, the sooner your window opens. The next 30 minutes were a blur of preparation. Chief gathered what remaining ordnance the rebels could spare, additional grenades, a salvaged Imperial energy weapon Sarah had managed to partially adapt for Chief's use, and detailed maps of the excavation site's terrain. Dask's strike team, 6 rebels including Mira and Kor, prepared their own assault on the supply depot, timing their strike to coincide with the Imperial fleet's redirection. "Chief," Mira said, as the Spartan prepared to depart, "whatever happens out there, thank you for everything. You didn't have to get involved in our fight." "Soldiers protect people who need protecting," Chief said again, the same words he'd offered Dask days earlier. "That's true in every galaxy." Chief departed the base on a borrowed speeder, racing across the desert toward the excavation site as the first signs of the Imperial fleet's arrival became visible. 3 massive shapes descending through Tatooine's atmosphere, casting shadows that stretched for kilometers across the desert floor. By the time Chief reached the excavation site, a sprawling complex of abandoned mining equipment, deep trenches, and rusted machinery carved into a massive canyon. The Imperial fleet had taken position in low orbit, and shuttles were already descending toward the surface. Chief positioned himself atop the highest point of the excavation site, in full view of approaching Imperial forces, and activated every active sensor and communication device he'd salvaged, creating a beacon of energy, signatures that would be impossible for Imperial sensors and Vader's Force-sensitive Inquisitors to ignore. Within minutes, the response came. Not Stormtroopers this time, but figures in dark robes, moving with unnatural speed and precision. The Inquisitors, their double-bladed lightsabers igniting in shades of red as they descended from a shuttle directly toward Chief's position. Behind them, Vader himself emerged, his presence radiating the same gathering pressure Chief had felt days earlier, now magnified, more focused. "You've made a grave error, soldier," Vader said, his voice carrying across the canyon with mechanical resonance. "The Emperor wishes to study you, alive, if possible. But the Inquisitors..." Vader gestured to the robed figures spreading out around Chief's position, lightsabers humming with barely contained energy. "They have considerably less patience." Chief raised his weapon, his shields at full capacity for the first time since his arrival, the 3 days of rest and minor repairs at the Rebel base having allowed his shield generator to fully recalibrate to this galaxy's ambient energy. Whatever came next, he would face it at his full capability. "Then let's begin," Chief said, and the canyon erupted into chaos as the Inquisitors attacked. The first Inquisitor came in low and fast, twin crimson blades spinning in a whirlwind of motion that would have eviscerated an unprepared opponent in seconds. Chief met the attack head-on, his shields, now at full capacity, absorbing the initial contact as he sidestepped, using the Inquisitor's own momentum against them. A precise strike to the joint of the double-bladed lightsaber's hilt sent the weapon spinning from the Inquisitor's grip, and Chief followed with a blow that drove the attacker into a pile of rusted mining equipment with bone-jarring force. But there were 5 more, and Vader himself stood at the canyon's edge, watching. The second and third Inquisitors attacked in coordination, their lightsabers weaving complex patterns designed to overwhelm through sheer geometric complexity, angles of attack from which no conventional combatant could escape unscathed. Chief's enhanced reflexes, honed through years of fighting Covenant elites, whose combat forms had seemed similarly to inhuman, found gaps in the pattern. He took hits, his shields flaring, absorbing blade contact that would have severed limbs from an unshielded opponent, but he gave ground deliberately, drawing the Inquisitors deeper into the excavation site's maze of trenches and rusted equipment. This was terrain Chief had studied, terrain he'd chosen. He activated the salvaged Imperial energy weapon Sarah had adapted, not aimed at the Inquisitors directly, but at the ancient mining equipment surrounding them. Decades-old hydraulic systems, pressurized for excavation work long since abandoned, ruptured under the weapon's energy discharge. Superheated steam and shrapnel exploded outward in a cascade Chief had triggered with surgical precision, disorienting the Inquisitors mid-attack. In the chaos, Chief moved, not retreating, but circling, using the environment as both weapon and shield. A fourth Inquisitor, caught in the steam cloud, stumbled into Chief's path and received a devastating strike that ended their participation in the engagement. A fifth, more cautious, hung back and found themselves isolated as Chief collapsed a section of rusted scaffolding with a precisely placed grenade, burying the Inquisitor beneath tons of corroded metal. 2 remained, along with Vader. The two remaining Inquisitors, more experienced than their fallen comrades, adjusted their tactics, working together, using the Force to enhance their speed and coordination in ways Chief's sensors registered as impossible spikes in kinetic energy. Chief found himself genuinely tested, his shields depleting faster than they could regenerate even at full efficiency. Blade strikes scoring hits against his armor that, while not penetrating, left him moving with increasing difficulty, as servo motors strained against accumulated damage. It was then that Vader entered the fight directly. The Sith Lord moved with terrifying speed, his lightsaber igniting as he closed the distance. And for a moment, Chief faced three opponents simultaneously: two Inquisitors and a Sith Lord, whose full capabilities had only been partially demonstrated during their first encounter. Chief's shields failed entirely under the combined assault, the energy barrier collapsing with a final pulse that left his armor as his only protection. A lightsaber strike from one of the Inquisitors connected. Not a killing blow, but enough to sever a section of Chief's armor plating from his left shoulder, the energy blade cutting through titanium with horrifying ease. Pain, sharp and immediate, registered through Chief's neural interface, but Spartan training overrode the response, channeling the pain into focus rather than panic. Chief retaliated with everything he had left, his final grenade thrown not at his attackers directly, but at the canyon wall above them. The resulting rock slide created chaos, burying the remaining Inquisitor beneath tons of debris and forcing Vader to leap backward, momentarily separated from Chief by a wall of falling stone. In that moment of separation, Chief made a final calculation. His shields were gone. His armor was breached. His ammunition was exhausted. Continued direct combat against Vader, even with the Sith Lord momentarily isolated, would end in Chief's defeat or death. But the mission, drawing the fleet's attention, creating a window for the rebellion's strike on the supply depot, had already succeeded. Chief's comm device, still functional despite the engagement's chaos, had been receiving updates. Dask's strike team had infiltrated the supply depot, exploiting the Imperial fleet's complete focus on the excavation site. The depot's destruction was imminent. Chief's role here was complete. What remained was survival. Or, if survival wasn't possible, ensuring his death served some final purpose. He retreated into the excavation site's deepest trench, a narrow passage that Chief had noted during his earlier reconnaissance led to an old mining tunnel system, the kind of confined space where Vader's lightsaber advantage would be neutralized by sheer lack of room to maneuver, but where Chief's smaller profile and augmented strength might provide an edge in close confines. Vader pursued, climbing over the rock slide with terrifying ease, lightsaber igniting once more as he entered the tunnel system after Chief. What followed was combat unlike anything Chief had experienced. A desperate, close-quarters struggle through collapsing tunnels, Vader's lightsaber illuminating the darkness in flashes of crimson, Chief using every trick of guerrilla warfare and close combat training to avoid the blade while searching for any advantage. The tunnels, ancient and unstable, groaned under the combat's stress, support beams cracking, sections of ceiling collapsing. It was in one such collapse, triggered by Chief's deliberate strike against a load-bearing support, a calculated gamble on terrain Chief had assessed could be weaponized, that the engagement reached its conclusion. The tunnel section between Chief and Vader collapsed entirely, a wall of stone and debris separating them completely, Vader's lightsaber visible for a moment, through gaps in the rubble, before even that light vanished. Above ground, the excavation site shuddered as Imperial fleet sensors registered a massive seismic event. The tunnel collapse Chief had triggered, coinciding with an even larger explosion from across the desert. The supply depot, struck by Dask's team, detonating in a cascade that lit up Tatooine's sky. The Imperial fleet, caught between two crises, a buried Sith Lord and a destroyed supply depot, descended into confused chaos. Ships repositioning, search parties dispatched in multiple directions, command structure fracturing under the weight of simultaneous catastrophes. In the rubble of the collapsed tunnel, Master Chief lay buried beneath tons of stone, his armor breached, his shields depleted, his body bearing wounds that, under normal circumstances, would have been fatal. But Spartan physiology, augmented and enhanced beyond ordinary human limits, fought on, slowly, methodically, using augmented strength to shift debris one section at a time. Chief began the long process of digging himself free. It took hours. By the time Chief emerged from the rubble, bloodied and exhausted but alive, the desert above had fallen eerily quiet. The Imperial fleet, he observed through cracked optics, had withdrawn, not defeated, but redirected, called away to address the crisis at the destroyed supply depot and, Chief suspected, to search for any sign of their missing Sith Lord beneath tons of collapsed rock. Chief's comm device crackled weakly. "Chief? Chief, are you there? Please respond." "I'm here," Chief said, his voice rough but steady. "Mira, status report." "Chief!" Relief flooded Mira's voice. "We did it. The depot's destroyed, the fleet's in chaos, and Imperial Command thinks Vader might be dead or trapped somewhere in the excavation site. They're tearing the place apart looking for him, but they think you're buried under there too. As far as the Empire knows, the anomaly is gone." Chief considered this. Vader, buried but likely alive. Spartan instincts told him a being with that level of resilience wouldn't be so easily ended. But the Empire believed otherwise, at least for now. And in the confusion, an opportunity had emerged. "Send a speeder," Chief said. "I'm clear of the site, but I need extraction. And Mira, tell Dask the depot strike worked. This sector's Imperial logistics are crippled." "On our way," Mira said. "Chief, what now?" "The Empire thinks you're dead. That gives all of us, a window, a chance to disappear, regroup, plan our next move without Imperial eyes specifically hunting for you." Chief looked out across the desert, the twin suns beginning their descent toward the horizon, casting the wreckage of the excavation site in long shadows. He thought of the choice he'd made, not driven by ideology, not because the rebellion represented some objectively correct side in this galaxy's conflict, but because, in this moment, in this fight, protecting the vulnerable and striking at those who threatened them had aligned with everything what he stood for. He thought of Vader's words, "We will meet again." "For now," Chief said, "we disappear, regroup. But Mira, this isn't over. Not for the Empire, and not for me. Whatever Vader survives this, whatever the Emperor decides about the anomaly, they'll come looking again. And next time, I intend to be ready. Then we'll be ready too," Mira said, "together." As the speeder approached across the desert, Chief allowed himself a moment of reflection, the first since his arrival in this galaxy. He'd come here with no allies, no understanding of this galaxy's rules, facing a power structure that dwarfed anything he'd encountered even in his war against the Covenant. He'd made choices. To help, to fight, to risk everything for people he'd known for mere days. And in doing so, he'd become something this galaxy had never seen before. An anomaly the Force couldn't perceive. A soldier whose presence had already begun reshaping the balance of a galactic civil war. The rebellion had gained an ally whose capabilities remained largely unknown even to himself. The Empire had encountered a threat it couldn't categorize, couldn't predict, and, for the first time in years, couldn't immediately eliminate. Somewhere beneath tons of rubble, Darth Vader stirred, anger and determination burning through the pain of his injuries. The anomaly had escaped him once. It would not escape him again. The galaxy had changed, and the multiverse, infinite and unpredictable, had gained one more variable, one more thread woven into the endless tapestry of crossing realities, where heroes from one world found purpose, conflict, and perhaps even belonging in another.